Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. This week, we're going to discuss something that's been going on at the State Board of Education and then again on Friday with the Oklahoma City School Board. And this has to do with a lawsuit that started in 2017 when it comes to funding public charter schools in line with our other public school districts. So we had a little drama going on over the last week or so at the Oklahoma Board of Education, where they, on a vote of 4-3, decided to settle a lawsuit from 2017 where the charter school board was suing the Oklahoma Board of Education for monies so that they think that they should be funded equally among public school districts since they're public charter schools. The difference with that is public charters are actually ran, even though they're public charters may be identified with a certain school district, they are ran by private organizations. So it's kind of like how Stitt wants to run our Medicaid program through a private company, which usually is a lot more costly than if we did it ourselves, which you can always see even in the numbers they gave when it comes to privatizing Medicaid, like Stitt wants to do. Anyway, back on this State Board of Education thing. So, on a vote of 4-3, now interesting because the four people that voted yes to settle this suit are Stitt appointees. One is Trent Smith. Trent Smith was appointed just a year or two ago to the board seat, and he has really no practical experience whatsoever. He is a former OU football player and played professional football. He, how is he qualified? Well, he's a parent. That's what they said. Anyway, when Stitt came out to talk about his qualifications, the biggest thing he touted was he's a parent. He's got kids in school. So that's his big qualification. He's a parent. And he's also the lineage of, well, his grandfather was a school teacher and is his aunt. So there you go. That's his link to it all. What does he do himself? Well, he was a football player at OU, played professional football for a little while, and he's a businessman. So that's his qualifications to sit on the board. And the funny thing was, whenever he got on there, he said, well, you know, I don't expect to do a whole lot. I'm not going to cause a lot of waves. I'm just there. I'm going to learn what I can. I'm going to learn what I can because I don't know a lot about this. So that tells you right there, maybe we shouldn't be having this guy on that board because he really doesn't know a lot about what he's doing. But no, here we are. He's on there. And then within a year, he's putting in a proposal to, hey, let's illegally and unconstitutionally, settle this lawsuit. Because that's what it amounts to. Because the three people that dissented, one was Joy Hoffmeister, who is the Republican education secretary of state. So that's what she does, and she was totally against this because one, yeah, it goes against the law as far as how things are settled. Two, it goes against the Constitution on how public education is to be funded because it's in there. There's actually a formula. And also in there, in the Constitution, it says that the legislature is where the purse strings are handled. It's not with the administration of the governor's offices, especially with his own handpicked Board of Education appointees. They don't get to decide how monies in Oklahoma get to be spent. That's the legislature. So that's why they say that this is unconstitutional. And then it all comes down to really weird stuff with this. Because this isn't it. Because we got a whole lot more. The other thing is, hey, there's a guy who sits on the board. There's supposed to be one more vote on this issue, and it was missing. And the guy who was missing, he's also running for the board against the incumbent that's there. But he didn't vote. And he hasn't shown up to anything in a minute. So we don't know where he is. He didn't vote on it, didn't have a say, and then there was a local press that asked a question and they never got back with him. So we have no idea where his thoughts lie on this. And this is a guy currently running inside their deal for the chair position of the State Board of Education. So we have a guy missing in action kind of too. So it's kind of a weird deal. And then to top it all off, on Friday, Oklahoma City School Board came out and announced their resolution. And so they're going to sue. And basically, they're going to sue because this goes against state law and it goes against the Constitution, and they're not going to comply with it. So they're going to tie this up in the court system. That's exactly what's going to happen with it. So here we go again. Kevin Stitt bumbling around because, yeah, again, he's just a businessman, not a lawyer, doesn't know anything about law, not a politician, so he doesn't know anything about policy, making law and policy, doing it ways that are actually against the law and against the Constitution because he doesn't know any better. And that's basically what you got. You got a guy bumbling around who doesn't know much, who says we're going to try to be a top 10 state by using people who are not qualified to do the jobs that he's trying to put them in there to do. All because he feels you're qualified as long as you got some business acumen. Hey, you're qualified. That's basically all I see out of Kevin Stitt. And it's what you have here. It's definitely part of the thing that you see here. You got people in business. You got people like this Trent Smith guy, who is a professional athlete, has a business, has money, and he definitely paid some dark money pack for this seat. There's no other way I can see how he could get on there except for a back scratch kind of way. Maybe it's not even that. I think it is part of that. Another thing is Kevin Stitt has money, so to him it's more about power. So maybe Trent Smith can access Kevin Stitt power, and that's why he's got him there. Or maybe it goes in deeper than that. Who knows? Maybe in a roundabout way all these charters and private schools and everything else are all tied in back ways with Kevin Stitt somehow, but who knows. So anyway, we have Oklahoma City Public Schools putting out this resolution talking about how, hey man, this is going through the courts. We've been going through the courts with it. That's the proper venue. It really is. To see if, hey, is this law that's currently in place, does it follow the Constitution of Oklahoma or not? And if it doesn't, how doesn't it? And then we can take that and improve upon it. And that's basically how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to, they create the laws, they pass the stuff that goes in the Constitution, the courts make sure that those laws the legislature are passing meets constitutional muster. It's not where the administrative branch, the governor, gets to decide unilaterally. Who cares what the judicial or legislature says? They get to go ahead and do whatever they want. It doesn't work that way. But that's the way Kevin Stitt's trying to game it. And it's how conservatives work in a lot of levels. Because this is totally against the republic. It's totally un-Republican. Let's put it that way. It's not a representative process because the legislature is supposed to hold the purse strings. They get to decide where the monies go in a representative way. And this is Kevin Stitt and his cronies taking that representative government, that Republican-style government, away from us. So it's more than their hatred of democracy, because we know they do. It's in their platform. They put it in the Oklahoma Republican platform. They show it where they hate democracy. It's an affront to them. It's something we should fight. But this goes beyond that to the hatred of Republican principles and representative government. That is what Republicanism is. So in a way, they hate the Republic too, because what it's all about is power and how they can get their agenda through with their power and how they can take it from other people or other places, whether it's legal, constitutional, doesn't matter to them, as long as they can get it and as long as they can move their agenda forward. And that's what matters to them. And that's what matters to them in all of this. And that's basically what we see here. And that's why people are fighting so hard. Like Oklahoma City Public School System. That's why they're fighting it so hard. And their resolution, when they voted on it, 7-0, 7-0 in favor of the resolution that goes at the State Board of Education on their decision to hand private companies that run these public charters a whole bunch of cash. Because here's the thing. This money, it doesn't just come from the general fund. This is also money out of their plant and equipment funds. Their other scholarship and sports education funds. It's all of that. So they're going to get a whole piece of that. And this goes further into conservative line of thinking when it comes to hatred of things public, like public education. A lot of them see it as socialism, even though it isn't. Socialism is a type of economy. But they see it as that. You can't tell them anything different. So they want to kill it. And that's what we got here. You've got a great example of conservative ideology when it comes to implementation of private and charter schools over public. And that was the whole argument in this too. One of the arguments in this is that these public charters, they were coming in and saying, these public schools, they outcompete us. They're on an unlevel playing field because they outcompete us. But that's funny because I thought at the beginning, but the whole beginning of this, when they decided years ago to let charter schools do their thing, that public schools shouldn't be scared. They should welcome the competition because it'll make them better, right? Then that it'll make them better. So, but that's not what we got here, right? That's not what we have. So we have a place where they like to dish it. They're just not taking it very well. Because one of the arguments they came out with as to why they need to take this money away from public schools is that public schools are doing so much better than these charters. They have these students and everything else, and it's not fair that they can outcompete us that way. So we need to tie their hands behind their back by taking away their resources, and not just taking away the resources or keeping them from it, but taking those resources and then giving them to the public charters, because that gives them a leg up. And that's exactly one of the arguments they used in this, that this gives charters a leg up so they can compete with public education, when the whole argument at the beginning was, well, free market, it'll make them all better, competition makes it better. So that's not what we got here, though. We have competition coming in, and these charters going, no, man, it's not going to make us better. We're not going to take this and try to figure out ways where we can compete against public education. Nah, man, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this in a cowardly way, to where we're going to say, you know what? We can't compete with public education, so you need to tie their hands behind their back. We need to hobble public education somehow so we can compete. Because I guess they can improve. I guess there's no more improvement for them. They're at where they're at, and public education has to be worse. That's just so cowardly. That's so cowardly. And it's totally against how they said this would be. It was supposed to spur competition and make them innovate to, compete against each other so they would do better, right? So that's what the charter schools ought to do. That's exactly, those are the rules we're playing with, isn't it? I think it is. So those public charters, those private companies running them, they need to compete. If they can't compete, well, then they need to get out of the game, right? I mean, those are the rules we're playing by, I believe. I believe it is. And that's kind of how I believe it. If you can't compete, then either retool your system or get out of the game. Telling somebody else to hobble themselves, they need a handicap in order to play with you, that's just cowardly. It really is. I want to see just how this works out. I personally think people like Trent Smith, who are unqualified for the position he has, who does things that are illegal and against the Constitution, should probably vacate the board position he has. I don't think he's qualified to be on the board. If that is his qualifications, that his grandfather was a teacher and he has kids in school. Well, this is Across the Desk with Kit Fairchild, and we'll see you next week.